As we get closer and closer to BSC season, I really feel like it's about time we have this conversation. Competitive Brawl Stars is going to be completely different than anything we've known in the past. Not only is there more money for monthly finals, a mid-season LAN event, and other really cool things, but the format is changing entirely. Many of you are familiar with the mode Power League. It's been out for a while now, and I don't think it's going to be too unfamiliar to a lot of you, but in case you're not, it's a competitive draft-based system where each team blindly bans 2 brawlers, and then the remaining brawlers are eligible to be drafted in a snake fashion. This has been in Brawl Stars for a while now, but it's never been used for BSC. This concept is going to change up the meta entirely. For a long time, the way competitive Brawl Stars has worked is each side blindly bans 2 brawlers before the match starts, and those apply to every single map. This doesn't sound too bad. 4 brawlers get eliminated, and teams can really implement strategy when picking the best combination for each of their teams. However, this format has certainly led to some issues in the past. Let's do a little analysis here just for an example. Let's take a Brawl Ball map, call it Sneaky Fields. To go on a competitive walk down memory lane, Sneaky Fields has had many different winning combinations over the last little bit here in competitive. One of those common strategies is to use Poco and then 2 other tankier brawlers known as Poco Double Tank. You can match Poco with brawlers like Buzz, Rosa, Frank. Those would be ones that are more dominant in terms of tanks and aggro brawlers in the meta right now. And this has been a common strategy in Brawl Stars for a long time. But to counter this, teams had to adjust, right? It was one of the best combinations in the game. So to counter tanks, what do? You go anti-tank brawlers. So to counter these tankier compositions or heal type oriented comps, people would run a more area control based composition, including brawlers that did really well into tanks. Take B or Ims, for example, who are both very, very good at handling tankier brawlers like Frank. That's a Frank's worst nightmare right now. And they combine it with brawlers like Spike, Tara, Sandy, Rico. Those are especially going to be ones right now that do really well into those more tankier-based compositions. So now we have another comp that needs to be countered, right? We've got the tanky compositions and we've got the anti-tank compositions. And the anti-tank compositions do an insane job at countering the tank compositions. So how are we going to deal with the anti-tanks? And so the combination that people came up with was they would use something along the lines of B, Griff, and Colt. This isn't as recent, but just as a general example here, I think it's good to show that how pros are thinking of these things. So we've got B, Colt, and Griff. Colt and Griff are going to be your lanes, more long-distance brawler-oriented brawlers, and you can open up the map with Griff's gadget and Colt's super and gadget as well, and B is going to wreak havoc on a wide-open map against those brawlers like Ims and Tara and Sandy, who do not have nearly the kind of range that those brawlers like B and Colt and Griff have. So that was a good way to counter those brawlers. So now we've got kind of this pyramid right now, and this is kind of what pros will refer to as the rock, paper, scissors effect. Each combination has a really clear advantage and a clear weakness, and that's just kind of how it goes. Often this can lead to a lot of teams playing mirror matchups. On Sneaky Fields in particular, the meta recently has been similar anti-tank combinations being played on both sides out of fear that the other person might run a tank and they really don't want to deal with that, just of how strong tanks are, especially with gears in the meta now. Many also see rock, paper, scissors as a negative just because it can be kind of seen as luck from time to time, right? If one team gets lucky and picks the right combination that counters the other team, they have a clear advantage over the other team. And so I think the biggest problem with this is it leaves viewers and audiences' heads with a little bit of doubt, right? Too many times I feel like I've seen in the community people have asked, did that team really win because they were better? Or did they simply win because they were lucky and they picked the right brawler combination? Now, this is by no means a complaint. I think competitive Brawl Stars and the whole entire Supercell team for Brawl Stars particularly has done a really, really good job. I think competitive's been super entertaining, and especially despite the global issues that we've had the last couple of years, they've still provided a lot of awesome moments for us. But that doesn't mean it can't improve, right? And I think power matches are going to be a really, really awesome way to add on to that and eliminate a lot of problems the old format had. So to start, one issue right off the bat is bans will now be based on individual maps. It doesn't have to apply to the entire mode. So teams do not have to waste a blind ban on a brawler, let's say like Grom, for example, who you might want off several maps, but Grom's not a top tier brawler on every single map, right? It's not every single map you're going to see Grom or somebody like Meg be absolutely insanely top 2 dominant every time, at least for the most part. There's very few times in the history of Brawl Stars, at least recently, that one brawler has been so strong to the point where they have to be played on every single map. So now they can kind of evaluate every single map individually, right? I would honestly love to see even more bans, because currently the way Power League is structured is each side gets one blind band and then they go ahead and draft. But I think 2 blind bans, especially considering how many brawlers there are, how many good brawlers they are, the gears meta coming in, I think it's even better to incorporate more strategies, and it also just brings in more different kinds of brawlers, which I think would be refreshing for the community. I think something we'd all really like to see, right? I think we all kind of want to see a variety of brawlers. I don't think anybody particularly just wants to see Meg or Belle or Stu or you name it, whatever brawlers show up every single time. Another thing too is the draft system immediately eliminates rock, paper, scissors in its entirety. And now teams are no longer left to guess what the opponents are picking. They can just see it happening live. I also think one really big thing about this that people don't really mention, and I feel like it's been slept on for a really long time, is the coaching aspect of this. And I think it becomes even more important, arguably, than it ever has. Teams can't just rely on being the best mechanically anymore. They can't just scrim every time, because every single time a Power League match happens, it's going to be a different scenario. There's going to be different brawlers picked. You're playing against different opponents. And I think that eliminates a lot of just combinations of brawlers like we discussed earlier. No longer is there a one-size-fits-all kind of strategy. Now almost every single brawler could be on the table. With gears being introduced too, tanks have been arguably the strongest they've ever been, and their usage rate is super high just because of the increased HP and stats and all that. So triple aggro or tanks are really common now, but this can't happen without consequence in a draft system. If a team drafts a brawler like Frank first overall or Rosa first overall, a couple of really strong brawlers right now, the enemy team can simply counter this with their own picks, right? They can just pick B and M's, and now that brawler is outmatched the entirety of the game. So there's no longer a one combination that does the job. There's no longer one meta pick, because now there's bans on both sides that are blind, and there's a draft system. So at least if there is 3 particular brawlers that are the best on one map, they're going to be divvied up between the teams. Now we live in a world where almost every single brawler at least has a map or a mode or a brawler that they counter well, right? There's 50 something brawlers now. I don't even know the number off the top of my head with Fang coming out today. But anything that encourages more creativity, strategy, skill, I think these are all very positive attributes we'd want to see in competitive Brawl Stars. Anything that requires players to adapt like this, I'm all here for. I think we're going to see a lot of different kinds of brawlers come in, and overall it's just going to be for the better. Simply put, this is going to be the best competitive year of Brawl Stars. There's way less question marks on the table now. It forces teams to get creative, have strong mechanical skills, coordination, pre-game strategy, and I also think it just gets more roles involved in the community. It gives coaches a little more spotlight. It gives managers a little more opportunity to show that, hey, not anybody can just lead a team to do this. I know it takes really good players and things like that too, but coaches go very slept on here. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity to see how they impact the games that we watch on a monthly basis. As a caster and fan, I really do believe that BSC 2022 is going to be the best season yet. I think they've got a lot of good things coming, which we'll explore more in the future, such as the LAN event, more money coming out to people, things like that. But I think this format is just such a positive change, and it's going to make the viewing process the best it's ever been. Anyways, enough from me. I'd love to hear what you all think down below. Do you all like the new changes? Do you think they could be better? What would you do specifically in the draft process differently? Anything that promotes higher competition and strategy, though, is something I'm pretty much always going to be a fan of. Anyways, I really appreciate you all. And if you want to see more videos like this, or just me breaking down professional Brawl Stars gameplay, I have a pretty good game knowledge just from casting the game, doing queso cups and things like that. So if you really enjoy this kind of content or want me to do more videos kind of like this, just explaining my thoughts and just analysis of the general meta of the game, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to do more professional Brawl Stars oriented content for you all if that's something you all are here for. Anyways, I appreciate you all. We will see you all in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.